Hare Krishna. We continue reading from Caitanya Caritamrita. We are on Adi-Lila, chapter 5, text 41. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So we have been reading the purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And this is the verse. It is telling us that the Chaturvyuha, they are transcendental. Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Anirudh, they are transcendental. So reading from the purport, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Anirudh have all the potent features of the absolute personality of Godhead, according to the revealed scriptures, which contain undeniable facts that no one can refute. So the revealed scriptures, the scriptures, they have facts which no one can refute. Why? Because it's a fact. When something is the truth, you can't, argue against it. And what does it say? That Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Anirudh have all the potent features of the absolute personality of God. It means they have all the opulences of the Supreme Lord. Why? Because they are his expansions. They are non-different from him. So all the expansions of Krishna, all the expansions of Krishna, they have all these opulences, these potencies of Krishna, but they do not exhibit all of them. They exhibit only as much as needed for that particular pastime. So God is one, and he has many expansions, many portions and plenary portions. So therefore, these members of the quadruple manifestation are never to be considered ordinary living beings. Each of them is a plenary expansion of the absolute Godhead. And thus, each is identical with the Supreme Lord in knowledge, opulence, energy, influence, prowess, and potencies. So there cannot be two gods. There is only one God. Because if there's two gods, then there is no meaning to God, right? So God is one, and he has unlimited potencies. And with these potencies, he can expand unlimitedly. He has many, many expansions. So these quadruple, the Chaturvyuha, are his expansions. And they have all the knowledge, opulence, energy, influence, prowess, and potencies of Supreme Lord Krishna. The evidence of the Pancharatras cannot be neglected. Only untrained persons who have not genuinely studied the Pancharatras think that the Pancharatras contradict the Shrutis regarding the birth or beginning of the living entity. So Shruti is what? The Vedas, that which is heard. Shruti means, because in earlier Vedic times, there was no need to record it. There was no need to record the Vedic knowledge, which was received by hearing. But as Kali came, Vyasadeva knew that our memories are going to be so short. We hear something, and after 10 minutes, we are like, oh, what did I hear? I forgot. So he knew our memories are going to be very short. So he recorded everything. He wrote down everything. So before, the Vedic knowledge was just heard, Shruti. And so some people who have not really studied the Pancharatras, they think that the Pancharatras are speaking something different than the Shruti, but that's not true. They all complement each other. They all complement that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he has unlimited potencies. In this connection, we must accept the verdict of Srimad Bhagavatam, which says the absolute personality of Godhead, who is known as Vasudeva, and who is very affectionate toward his surrendered devotees, expands himself in quadruple forms who are subordinate to him and at the same time identical with him in all respects. So Bhagavatam says, it's explaining very clearly in one sentence, the position of the quadruple. What is Bhagavatam saying? The absolute personality of Godhead. The absolute personality of Godhead means the supreme personality of Godhead, the absolute truth. What's his name? His name is Vasudev. Vasudev. What does he do? He's affectionate towards his devotees, surrendered devotees. So he's a person, absolute personality. When we say personality, it means a person. His name is Vasudev. He has this loving relationship with his devotees, loving pastimes. Affectionate means he's able to express his affection, right? Means there's a relationship there, like the father and the child. The father is very affectionate towards the child. How do we know? The father is doing things for the child, buys him gifts, becomes a horse for him, takes him out, entertains him, that way. There's a relationship. There's some actions happening there. So this Vasudev, what is he doing? He's expanding himself into the Chaturvyuha, who are subordinate to him, and yet they are same like him in all respects. Why are they subordinate to him? Because they do not need to show all the prowess at that time. But although they have all the powers like him, So the Paushkara Samhita states. Now there's another Samhita called the Paushkara Samhita. The scriptures that recommend that Brahmanas worship the quadruple forms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are called Agamas, authorized Vedic literature. So what are Agamas? Agamas are the authorized Vedic literature in which the Brahmanas, they worship this Chaturvyuha, the Anirudh, Sankarshan, Vasudeva, and Pradyumna. They're worshipping them as the Supreme Personality of God, and they understand that these are expansions of the Supreme Lord. And this is stated in the Paushkara Samhita. So we can see that there is so many scriptures that we have not even heard of. And if we really study them, all of them are pointing that there is a Supreme Lord. He has so many expansions and he has so many potencies. So in all Vaishnava literature, it is said that worshipping these quadruple forms is as good as worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vasudeva, who in his different expansions, complete in 6 opulences, can accept offerings from his devotees of the results of their prescribed duties. So Vaishnava literature, the devotees, the Bhakti Shastras, what they are saying, that there is a Supreme Lord and he has so many expansions. The Vishnu Tattvas, that is, when we are worshipping the Vishnu Tattva, we are worshipping the Supreme Lord. And it's okay. They're saying it's okay. Worshipping the expansions for pastimes such as Nrsimha, Rama, Shesha, and Kurma promotes one to the worship of the Sankarshan quadruple. From that position, one is raised to the platform of worshipping Vasudeva, the Supreme Brahman. So what happens? As long as we are worshipping the expansions of the Lord, who are Vishnu Tattva, then gradually our worship, so we are worshipping Lord Nishingadev, Lord Ramachandra, Shesha, Kurma Avatar, then we will understand the position of Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Anirudh. And then we will begin to understand, oh, the Supreme Lord, that is Vasudev. He is from whom everything is coming, from whom everyone is coming. The Brahman effulgence is coming from him. So if one fully worships according to the regulative principles, one can attain. In the Paushkara Samhita, it is stated, if one fully worships according to the regulative principles, one can attain the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. It is to be accepted that Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Anirudh are as good as Lord Vasudeva, for they all have inconceivable power and can accept transcendental forms like Vasudeva. Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Anirudh are never born, but they can manifest themselves in various incarnations before the eyes of pure devotees. This is the conclusion of all Vedic literature. So all the expansions of the Supreme Lord are transcendental. It's not that, and they are all eternal. They are all eternal, the expansions of the Supreme Lord. It's not that, oh, Sankarshan does not exist and then at one time, then he became, then he was created. No, no, they all are eternal. They all have the potency of the Supreme Lord because the Lord is one and he has many expansions. They can, okay. This is the conclusion of all Vedic literature, that the Lord can manifest himself before his devotees by his inconceivable power is not against the teaching of the Pancharatras, since Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Anirudh are respectively the predominating deities of all living entities, the total mind and the total ego. The designation of Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Anirudh as Jiva, mind, and ego is never contradictory to the statements of the scriptures. So Lord Sankarshan, he is the master of the living entities. Pradyumna, he is in charge of the, I forget, is it the mind or the ego? And Anirudh is with the ego and Pradyumna is with the mind. So that's all it is. These terms identify these deities just as the terms sky and light sometimes identify the absolute Brahman. So sometimes, yeah, Brahman, we say, oh, it's the light or it's the spiritual sky, right? That's what we say, the Brahman. But the absolute truth, he is a person. So the scriptures completely deny the birth or production of the living entity. We, the living entity, what do the scriptures say? That it's not that any point of time we are born, because if it means that we are born at any time, that means we are going to die. That means we are not eternal. But that's not the truth. That's not the truth. So the scriptures are always talking that the living entity, we, the souls, we are eternal, eternal. In our material mind, it's very difficult to understand what does eternal mean, because in our material experience, everything we see has a birth date or a manufacturing date and an expiry date. That's our material experience. But the spiritual is not material. You know, we cannot understand the material, spiritual with our material experiences. In the Parma Samhita, okay, there's another Samhita. In the Parma Samhita, it is described that material nature, which is used for others' purposes, is factually inert and always subject to transformation. So yeah, material nature, we see always transformation. How we take the soil, then we add water, we'll give it a shape, it will become a pot, or even the sun will evaporate the water from the ocean, it will become clouds, then again it will come down as rain. So we see that there's always transformation. It's actually in earth. Mother nature, material energy, the material elements are actually in earth, but they appear to be living because they continuously transform. They can be transformed. Because of that, it appears to us as living, you know. But behind the transformation, what is there? That is the working, that is the order of the Supreme Lord. That is what makes us feel that, oh, material nature is living. But the elements are all inert, but they're working under the laws of the Supreme Lord. The field of material nature is the arena of the activities of fruitive actors. And since the material field is externally related with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is also eternal. So this material energy, belongs to the Supreme Lord. Only she is his external energy. So she's eternal. She's eternal, but she's external. In every samhita, the jiva, living entity, has been accepted as eternal. And in the Pancharatras, the birth of the jiva is completely denied. Anything that is produced must also be annihilated. Therefore, if we accept the birth of the living entity, we also have to accept his annihilation. So here, when we are speaking of living entity, we are speaking of the soul, not this material body. We are the living entity and we are inside this material body. And we, the Jivatma, the soul is eternal. All the scriptures say that. All the Vedic scriptures, the Pancharatras, the Samhitas, they are all saying that. Therefore, if we accept the birth of the living entity, we also have to accept his annihilation. But since the Vedic literatures say that the living entity is eternal, one should not think the living being to be produced at a certain time. In the beginning of the Parama Samhita, it is definitely stated that the face of material nature is constantly changeable. Therefore, beginning, annihilation, and all such terms are applicable only in the material nature. The Jivatma, the soul, it never changes, never changes. We are eternal. We never change. There is no annihilation for us. There's no beginning. We are eternally existing. So we'll stop here for today. We'll continue with the purport tomorrow. Oh, there is a bit of the purport. 2, 3. But yeah, we can try to do that tomorrow due to time restraint. So, Shri Caitanya Caritamrita ki jai, Shila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Hare Krishna.